Fantastic. Well, it's a great pleasure to be bringing God's word to you this morning, Freedom Church. I want to particularly welcome those who have never been before. So big welcome to you. I want to say it's great that you're here, and I don't believe it's accidental. Okay. Chris was just saying there, talking about it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. I'm going to keep moving, and I'm sorry if I'm out of picture, but it's fine. Because I want to make sure that I speak to you guys down here, and I'll be coming up there as well. Who's been watching Race Across the World? Yeah. Okay, so let me just quickly explain that. It's a kind of competition. There's kind of couples, sometimes there's a father and a daughter, or maybe two friends, or a husband and wife team, and they're placed at once. This one is about being placed at one side of Canada, and they've got to get right over to the other side. And then the money that they're given is just the money for a plane flight. But they can't take a plane. They've actually got to kind of do it, and they've got to hitch, and at times they've got to work hard and actually do little jobs in between and actually get from one side to the other side, and they've got to get all these points in between. And people get eliminated, and there's a £20,000 kind of prize at the end of it. Okay, so that's the kind of thing. And I just love this particular one where there's this couple, these two doctors from Glasgow, and they're Pakistan background, okay? So they're Muslim, and they declare that. They said, we're not really overt about it, but that's what we are, and our parents came over from Pakistan, and so that's where we are. So they're there, and they're taking part in this thing, and they hitch a lift with this older couple who then take them, and then they look after them overnight, and they feed them, and they kind of really look after them. They even sort of take them along to the next stop. So they get all this, and it's all free. But they're also sharing their faith that is about Jesus. And they're really overt about Jesus. And you've got this on this kind of program where they're talking about Jesus, and they're like, yes, well, we're not, we're Muslims. And you can see that suddenly there's a kind of quiet. It's like, all right, okay. So you don't believe in Jesus. So it's kind of like so they don't, and they're just very, very careful how they talk about it and so on. But it's just the generosity that is there, and it speaks so loud to this couple that actually there's a generosity of spirit that comes out of these people that is just like, you know what? I mean, nothing is too much hassle. Nothing is too much bother. We just want to be generous with you. We want to share what we've got with you to help you in any way we can. And you can see they are bowled over because of this generosity of heart and spirit. And I'm going to be speaking today, if we put the slide up, I'm going to be speaking today of Mary of Bethany. We're doing this series. And I said, yeah, I'd quite like to do Mary of Bethany. I think she's an interesting character. And we're looking at people who maybe aren't the most obvious people in the Bible, but actually we can learn something about their life. And I'm saying that she was generous of spirit, a worshiper, and she took time to listen well to what Jesus was really saying. And that's really where I'm going to end as well. Help us to be like that. There's I want to start though with three misconceptions that often we have when we kind of look at the stories. There's three different separate incidents where we hear in the Gospels about Mary of Bethany. And the first one is that actually, those are the passages. And the next slide. Yeah. That it's it's just for women, okay? This is a misconception. That almost like, oh, well, you're speaking about a woman, so this is obviously for the women in our congregation. And I want to say, it actually makes me particularly upset. Guys, we need to learn some of the most profound things that Jesus said was often just to a woman. Yeah. Some of the most profound things that we actually learn about. And we're going to hear one of those today in particular, about eternity and the resurrection. But he does it again, doesn't he, when he was talking to the Samaritan woman. And he shares really about worship. And he shares about, oh no, it's not in this place or that place. You thought it was in Jerusalem, or you thought it was over here in Samaria. No, it's actually in your heart. It's about having Jesus in your heart, bubbling up and overflowing and filling you with the Spirit of God. The second misconception is just this whole thing. There's several different incidents in the Gospels, okay? The Gospels are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, okay? For those who don't know, that's kind of the first 4 books of the New Testament are called the Gospels, okay? So, and they're telling about Jesus' life. And so there's a misconception that actually all the incidents where Jesus is anointed by a woman is the same incident, and it's not. Okay, there's more than one. Okay, and the reason that we know this is because, for example, in Luke 7, it takes place at a Pharisee's house. He's anointed by a woman, yes, but this woman is described as a sinner, which is sort of a euphemism for lady of the night. Also, it's at a Pharisee's house, and the other occasions, it's taking place at Simon, who is a leper, it says. Now, you can't have the Pharisee's house as a leper. You can't have those two things together, okay? And Mary of Bethany was not a prostitute. So they're different incidents, and I think it's quite important that we understand. Although there's a lot of similarities, it's not the same occasion. So it happened more than once. Yeah? Got that? A third thing, I think it's just very easy to this thing. As soon as I mention Mary of Bethany, you're going to go, oh yeah, the Mary and Martha thing, and la 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 la. Yeah, we know about that. And there's a kind of stereotype that goes out there that is immediately where we go. And I want to bring some light to that today. We want to see that Mary and Martha had different personalities. We are not all the same. Yeah? We're not all the same. Yeah? Thank God, yeah, thank God. I know we're not all the same, okay? And there's different personalities, and there's different strengths and weaknesses. And we're going to see some of that in some things, Martha excelled. That means did really well. And in some things, Mary did really well. But there were times that actually they didn't do so well. And we're going to see them times when Mary didn't do so well. Okay, and we're going to see that there's different personalities, different things, different strengths and weaknesses that actually, for all of us, when we're facing a situation, some of us actually you did that really well, and somebody else maybe not so well. And that's the way we are. That's called church. Yeah? So we're looking at these 3 passages, John 11, Luke 10, John 12. I'm going to start with the one in John 11. If you want to turn to it, you can. I've also got slides up, so you don't have to look, just to make it easier. And also, I want to tell a story, okay? I want to tell it in a story-like way. Now, many of you may know that Anne, my wife, who's just had quite a big sort of dental thing this week, that's why she's not here. But recently, her elder brother died. He was a wonderful, and we're going to talk a bit about this, the funeral. We're going to start with Lazarus' death, okay? And so Anne's brother, Paul, was a lovely father of 7. He had loads of friends that he had since he was a teenager. And, I believe he knew Christ. And I think this is this first passage that we're going to look at, about the death of Lazarus, helps us with dealing with sorrow and grief. We're all going to face grief in our life, aren't we? If you haven't already, you will. All right? So the Bible's great because it helps us to think this is actually a really helpful way of dealing with some of those things. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to get into it. Lazarus, there's Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. They're all part of the same household, brother and two sisters, okay? And they live in a town called Bethany. Now, Bethany is only 2 miles from Jerusalem, and that's quite important. It's very, very close. What you see is that actually Jesus loved hanging out in Bethany. He loved kind of nipping along there, not too far. You think of what 2 miles is here. It's not too far, just just a walk up the road, really. And he loved just going up there and spending time there. Okay, now the sisters rush this message to him because he's somewhere else, that actually, Lazarus is really sick. Quick, get here. And he hears the news. And what does he do? He just tells his disciples, actually, we're going to go via Judea. His disciples say to him, what? Don't you remember you nearly got stoned last time? I mean, isn't that a little bit crazy? He then says, well, no. I mean, Lazarus has actually fallen asleep. And they go, oh, right, okay. And he realizes they don't understand what he's saying. He said, no, what I'm actually saying is he's actually died. He's already died. And they're going, right, okay. So eventually he does get to Bethany, and he discovers that Lazarus has been in the tomb for 4 days, okay? And what we've got is that there's many Jews kind of around at Martha and Mary's house, okay? And we're going to start reading, and they're trying to console the two sisters. So we're going to read from 20. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. That's an important point I'm going to come back to. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, well, I know he will rise again in the resurrection of the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God who is to come into the world. I want to say these words are the most important words you can say in your life. These words. I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God who has come into the world. They are the most important words you could say in your life. And Martha says them. Yeah. And after she said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and he's asking for you. Martha, like her sister, is suffering from grief. It's her brother. But what do we see? And it's highlighted by John in John's Gospel. It isn't just a filler here. He's not just kind of saying something. He's saying it for a purpose. Martha goes out to meet Jesus. Mary stays at home. Martha goes out to meet Jesus. Martha runs out to meet Jesus. Mary stays at home. What does this say? We learn something of Martha's personality. Although deeply suffering, she doesn't just collapse into it. She goes out to meet Jesus. In the middle of our suffering, what do we need to do? We need to go out and meet Jesus. It doesn't mean to say we stop grieving, but we go out to meet Jesus. I know that whatever God will give, whatever you ask, God will give you. Your brother will rise again, he says. Interesting, Rob was kind of making this comment earlier on in the prophetic. What happens here is that Jesus reveals we can have faith in the future. Yes, I know that in the future, this will happen. I know that in the future, there'll be a resurrection from the dead and so on. I believe all that. But what Jesus brings is a revelation. And he says, no, listen, not just in the future, but I'm right here, right now. I'm right here, right now. I am the resurrection. I'm the personification of the resurrection. I am the resurrection. I'm not just in the future, I'm right here. And there's an immediacy. And I want to say there's something important here. I really want to stress this point. There's something really important here of the difference between having faith in some future event and having faith in the fact that Jesus is here today, right? In Chilwell Academy, Jesus is here today. He's here. And he's here for you to have faith in him now, not just in some future event. And that's what Martha caught. She understood this revelation of what Jesus was saying to her. Why didn't Mary catch it? Because she was at home grieving. She didn't go out to meet Jesus. And I just want to say something about Martha's personality before we look at the other passage, that actually here she is. She doesn't let it totally swamp over her. And I put it to you that maybe Mary was more emotional, more sensitive, but it kind of, the trouble about that, and I'm a bit like that, sometimes emotion's going to swamp you, and instead of going to connect with Jesus, you sort of get all kind of in it. And I think we need to learn from them and think, actually, there's something good about what Martha does. She goes out and she meets Jesus. There's nothing better, and she gets this revelation. She's one of the first people to really confess, you are the Messiah. When we hear it a lot, when we talk about, when he talks to his disciples, who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter says, you are the Christ. But here we've got Martha saying it. The Christian faith isn't just a set of rules and doctrines. I want to say this. This is where it's different than any other faith. It isn't just a set of rules and doctrines that we're trying to kind of keep. Okay? That isn't what Christianity is about. Do you know what it is about? It's about a person. And that person is Jesus Christ. It's about meeting a person, Jesus Christ. Have you met, I want to challenge you this morning, have you met the person? When Mary, verse 29, heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now, Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. And when the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to mourn there. And when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. And when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. And here the shortest verse in the Bible. And Jesus wept. And when the Jews said, see how he loved him. Meaning, so yeah, Jesus loved Lazarus. And some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind have kept this man from dying? We're not going to look at the rest of the story, but he raises Lazarus from the dead. Okay. He wanted to do something greater than just get there on time. He wanted to demonstrate the power that was laid on him to raise from the dead and to show that. Mary does go, but we don't hear from John a clear confession of her faith at this moment. We do see, however, that Jesus was not unmoved by Mary's sorrow, such that he also wept. I want to say Jesus is not unmoved by your sorrow. He's not unmoved by your sorrow. He weeps. Sometimes there's a place, isn't there, guys? There's a place where how do I deal with somebody who's really going through that? And what do I say to the person who's just lost their wife or husband or son or whatever? What do I say to them? Sometimes nothing. Jesus didn't say anything to Mary. He just wept. And at times we just weep. We stand alongside them. I think we can learn a lot from it. Okay, next passage, maybe better known. And we're looking at Luke 10, 38 to 42. I'm going to read it. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman, so this is earlier on, okay, this is earlier on. He came to where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Notice it was her home. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care what my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Let's just notice a few things. Mary says absolutely nothing in this passage. Okay? Martha's complaint to Jesus, the Son of God, is, don't you care? Let's just hear that. Interesting, Jesus doesn't tell her off for getting the tea ready or cleaning the dishes, but her attitude, it's her attitude towards her sister that he's talking about. She's so obviously bubbling up, knotted up about her sister kind of doing whatever, just sitting around, not helping. She's really got herself in a real tears. We know what that's like, don't we? Yeah. I don't know why this person doesn't help me more. Come on, what's going on here? Come on. We get ourselves more and more stewed up about the point. Jesus is saying, you're distracted. Mary, on the other hand, seems to know that this time with Jesus, this precious time with Jesus, is really important. It's not the time to go off and kind of get involved in a lot of other things. Man, the teacher's come. Jesus has come to our house. I need to listen to what he's got to say. And that's why she's chosen the best thing. While Martha's bashing around in the kitchen, getting all head up, seemingly oblivious, here is the King of Kings who has come to the house. Okay? Mary has chosen what is better. Mary is showing her faith by submitting herself to Christ and just listening to him. Just listening to him. And I want to say, at times, what God wants from us, just listen to me. Just stop your heart. Stop your busyness. and just listen. I just want to come. I want to bring my spirit on you. I want you to hear me. I want you just to be in my presence. Just being in his presence is like, whoa. I'm just around. I'm around the creator of the universe here. I'm just going to sit at his feet. I just want to hear him. Mary, what do we learn? Mary does seem more sensitive in nature than Martha, which in this instance helps. It helps her to kind of just shut up and listen, whereas in the previous passage, almost the emotions about Lazarus, her brother, seem to kind of got the better of her. And I think, we have, as I said, we have different personalities. And if you're that personality, there's actually, the get up and go, I just want to get on with things, then there's times when God wants to speak to you about just stilling your heart and stopping. And there's times if you're really emotional and you find that bit the easier part, then God's wanting to say there's times when you're letting those just completely drown you. And there's times when you just need to go to him. Yeah? I think it's good to just take yourself off sometimes. Go off we've got some great parks here in Liverpool. Take yourself off. Go and just have a walk and just still your heart and try and get to that place where you just have that, it puts things back in proportion and you're just meeting with Christ. Final passage, Luke 12, 1 to 11. 6 days before the Passover, and therefore the cross, we're told that Jesus is in Bethany celebrating a supper after Lazarus has been raised from the dead. Martha is serving again. Somebody has to. Mary took a pound of very costly perfume called pure nard and anoints Jesus' feet and wipes them with her hair. And the house is filled with the fragrance of this perfume. The cost of this is 300 silver denarii, which is, we're told, as much as a kind of basic salary for a year for a worker. So what is that in today's language? I don't know, 16, 18 thou or something like that. It's a lot of money. I looked up what is nard, not really knowing. A spikenard is a flowering plant from India. Its rhizomes are crushed and distilled into thick oil. The aromatic oil has been imported from India as far back as King Solomon's reign. So there you go. There's just a little thing. It had to be brought over from India. So it's quite a big thing. It was obviously expensive getting it across and everything else. And so when she does this, Mary, Judas Iscariot then pipes up and says, who's there? Why wasn't this perfume sold and given to poor people? Mary doesn't try and defend herself, but Jesus does. Again, she's coming under criticism for her devotion to Christ. Previously, it was over not doing more to help out. I just want you to hear the outlandish generosity of Mary in this, that she pours out. Again, she's not recorded as saying anything. Judas is criticizing her for not spending it on something more worthy. And she just carries on and she anoints Jesus. I want to say that I think Judas's response is rather similar to the world today. So the world today says to us, you Christians, you're spending your life worshiping this Jesus, pouring out your life, giving your money, giving your time, spending your energy, putting aside your ambition in order to serve what is Christ's ambition for you in your life. Yeah? What a waste of time that is. You could be spending it in something really important, something really helpful. In this instance, Mary teaches us that actually there's nothing more important. I want to spend it giving my life to Christ. I want to spend my life and all I've got pouring it out to him. Pouring it out to him. Giving it to him as an offering. You know, the interesting thing is that Mary doesn't defend herself. She doesn't feel guilty. We don't need to defend ourselves. We know that Christ is the chosen one, the whole pivot point of the whole world of history. The beginning, the end, the one who gives life, the one who will raise us from the dead when we finished our race here. He is the only solution to poverty, world corruption. He is the only one who can save this planet. Amen. Jesus Christ is the only one who can save this planet. Amen. Yes, this planet's in a mess, and only Jesus Christ. And that's what we believe. Yeah? Does Mary sense something in this? Because she pours it out, she anoints Jesus. Did you know the word Christ? Do you know what it means? The actual word? It means, yeah, well done. It means anointed one. Anointed one. He is the anointed one. He is the Christ, the anointed one. She's pretty prophetic here. Because she's picking up something about the time, and that just in a few days' time, Jesus is going to go to the cross. He's going to go to the cross, and what is he going to be smelling of? He's going to be smelling of this perfume that is going to be just filling the place. When he's getting whipped by the Roman soldiers, there's going to be this wonderful smell that is going to be coming off him because he's been just covered in this perfume. The anointed one. And she picks up something that I'm going to pour out this whole year's worth in order to pour it onto this Jesus. Because she picks up something that I don't think he's going to be here much longer. She picks up something while the disciples are scrabbling about who's going to be first, and really not picking up who the times of where what's going to happen to him. I'm going to go to the cross, guys. I'm going to die, guys. That's what I'm saying, right? They don't seem to catch this at all. No. They keep correcting him and putting him straight. Peter gets corrected for it. No, that's not going to happen. You're totally wrong, Peter. You're not listening. I want to say, I think Mary's listening. I think when she's stilling her heart and just stop talking and just listening, I think she's catching what Jesus is actually saying. And she picks up the point that actually, oh my gosh, I think we're very, very close to this Jesus who we accept to be here every single day, all around the place, dropping in for tea, all the rest of it. He's going to be taken away, tragically. And I'm going to anoint him with this perfume. I want to say to us, Can we wound to the last slide? Thanks, Jacob. What can we learn? What can we learn? Do you know Matthew 26 says, in talking about it, Jesus says about this woman, wherever the gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she, Mary, has done will be told. That's a lot of time. And that has gone on for millennia subsequent. Mary's actions carry on. And we're pouring out our heart for Christ. That's what we're here to do. So I've left you these questions. Do we let things distract us from what really matters? Are you listening well? Are you focused on him alone? Are you listening well? Are you listening well to Christ? Mary listened well. How lavish are you in your worship to Christ? And do you let others hold you back? Mary did not let others hold her back, either her sister or Judas. Are you like Martha, quick to run to Jesus in a crisis? Yeah? I think these are good questions that actually we can say, I want to be more like Martha and Mary and learn from these wonderful women who are great examples to us of lavish worship and listening to what Christ has to say. Amen?